Hello, this is Moses Jacobs for DeBarra Spoken Word in Ireland, on Zoom in Ireland. And I'm very happy to speak to Catrice Greer. And she's a regular contributor to our open mic and to our audience. And at the next session in November, she is going to be our special guest. So welcome, Catrice.
Thank you, Mose. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be part of this and to be your special guest coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we're very honored and lucky to have you because you always add a lot of vibrancy to any session that you take part in. And can I ask, where are you at the moment?
I am located in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, well,
in the USA.
Okay, that's great. If I look outside my window, it's dark now, but if I look outside my window, I can see Baltimore, Ireland in the distance. It's a stone throw away. Yeah, I shouldn't really. I suspect that this Baltimore has inspired your Baltimore, but I'm not. No, I didn't really study its history, so maybe not. It's a very small fishing village on the edge of Ireland, and well, I don't live there, but I can see it. So it's funny. And what I mean, here it's just after 8 o'clock in the evening. And what's your time?
It is 3:12 p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay, so we're like 5 hours apart, basically. Yeah. And we've just established that as here, your weather is really unseasonable, warm.
Yeah.
28 degrees in centigrade Celsius. And what is it in Fahrenheit, you said?
81.
81. And that is quite abnormal. And here, you know, it was hot enough to swim. I didn't actually, but it would have been. I saw somebody swimming, so that's quite unusual as well. Well, I think you some of your poems are about the changes in I'm not sure about the weather, but about in agriculture and the worries about the climate and the environment. I think it's a theme for you, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
it is. Nature means a lot to me. I feel very connected to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some beautiful lines that you have about that you really observe nature. I think is that something you've always done, or is it a new awareness?
Yes, it's always since childhood. We grew up in a suburban kind of place. And so we had lots of a very large yard. We had trees all around. You know, there was a wooded area across the street behind the homes right across from us. My parents took me to, my mom's from the American South and she grew up on a farm.
Okay.
So visiting there and the experiences here where I lived, nature was everywhere. It was part of life. We had wonderful trees. And I don't know, I just felt very connected to that. That's where you find me outside. And it's still the case. As a matter of fact, I went hiking with an ADA hike, but I went hiking with my garden club yesterday.
Okay.
Through the trails. So it means a lot. I feel like nature reflects the human condition. We're intrinsically tied together. So
yeah. And look what we're doing. And so you're a gardener as well. That's your joy, to be gardening outside your house.
I do. When I owned a home, I had a lovely little patch of a garden that I got to take care of in the back and the front of my home. I don't live in a home now, but I have plants indoors, and I like caring and nurturing for things.
In Today We Rebuild, is one of your poems, which people can listen to on SoundCloud, among others. It is about the fields that feed us, and you know, what are your thoughts about what we should do to change the decline of nature?
Well, that poem is an allegory. It's a political allegory. So the fields that feed us, that are ripe and lush, you know, I could speak on two levels. So in terms of the environment, taking care of our planet, we're talking about unseasonable weather. Where some may disagree with me, but I think we are looking at possibly the effects of climate change. And so there are things we need to do with the fields that are lush, you know, that we've been given to take care of it better, and to review what we've been doing, because it isn't enough and we can always improve, to ensure our continuation on this planet in a healthy way. And regarding the allegory is political, and it's about racism and bias and prejudice and extrajudicial killings and the Holocaust and the detention camps and refugees. So when I refer to those fields, in that sense, I'm referring to humans. In terms of the potential of humans, that we've been given the gift of life in all of these humans, and it's lush and it's filled with potential. And are we actually taking good care of each other and other humans? And what can we do to do that better so that we flourish? And reap the benefits? Because to harm various groups, inevitably we harm ourselves by creating these separations and these injustices and inequities, because we don't get to appreciate the fruits of the gifts human beings bring with them. So by oppressing different people or causing different people harm, if people are so busy doing that, they don't get to love very special people, make friendships, make unity, build communities, come up with new ideas, because people are oppressed who are housing these ideas inside of them. If we only treated people better, communities better, we reap more of the benefits as a whole, as a whole humanity. And so that's what I see as the fields.
It's real poetic. This one it's our worm-ridden fungi past. Is that what would you be referring to? I mean, maybe it's obvious, but
the terrible things in history, the things when I was, the first image that always comes up when that line comes up is there are little kids and you see them after the rain, and that's when the worms come up, and earthworms and different types of, they have their purpose. But little kids see them and they have that stick and they're flipping over the dirt and they go, ew, yeah, it's nasty because it's all this mud and they're trampling in it and it's going everywhere. And we perceive that to be yucky, right? But, and perhaps because everything gets turned up and turned over. So in those lines, as an adult, what I'm thinking of are the things that we've buried, the things that come up in the unexpected times, like the rain, like the storms, that tell us the truth of what is really still there. The fungi try to, the work of fungi in nature is to help, for instance, trees decompose, take down these things. So, but it has not happened in terms of our past and the past mistakes of humanity. They do exist. They're not buried. They didn't just disappear. It really is there. It gets turned over when we have storms, so to speak, in terms of crisis are the storms. And we see that there's still bits and pieces that are still decomposing, that are still trying to break down, and it's not completely broken
That's
down. We
interesting.
need to get in there.
I haven't heard that. No, it's interesting because I mean, in a way, you're talking about collective trauma
Yes.
that's still in us, but I haven't
Yes.
really heard the analogy that to use natural systems to break it down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Because I mean, you talk a lot about healing on your website as well. Do you have the recipe for healing?
I am a what do I want to say? I'm a partner. As a human being, as a global citizen, I'm a partner in our healing, aren't we all? And if we work together, we'll come up with lots of ideas together. We each bring something to the table to add, like a jigsaw.
Okay.
But because we do not include all of our global people all the time, we have gaps in our jigsaw. So we're struggling, those of us who are willing, to come together. We're struggling to jump those gaps and figure out, well, how do we make ourselves whole collectively? How do we do this? And,
are you part of sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
Are you part of groups talking about these matters?
Not necessarily in a global way, but for instance, I interact with groups like NAMI, the National Association for Mental Health. Let's see, pro bono counseling here, like mental health groups that are here in my state, that are trying to help people deal with the throes of life and sometimes extreme traumas. And I'm learning how to work along with those organizations as a volunteer and participate in these huge agendas.
Okay.
And also I'm a member of the Lapidus Scotland Wellness for Wellbeing writing community.
Okay. Yeah, there's some poems on SoundCloud that like, and I think Today We Rebuild is also part of that or not? Did that?
Yes.
And are you saying it's in Scotland?
It is. It's located in Scotland, but they also have an international group, which is Lapidus International.
Okay.
And I'm a member of Lapidus International, even though I spend a lot of time with Lapidus Scotland, my lovely neighbors across the waters. And Lapidus International, they're so interesting and they're right up my alley. They're basically, there's a research community as well as the wellness for well-being writing community. And they share, there are professionals there, psychologists, therapists, community activists who, to answer your previous question, who are exploring how to use writing to address these mental health issues and bigger issues, to at least address well-being. When you have a balanced well-being or managing these things, we're better citizens, we're better people, we function better, we're healthier, we can help each other. So they do a lot of methodology there, which is totally up my alley. And I get to now use research studies methodology on something that is qualitative. Often they're doing qualitative as opposed to quantitative, but there is some of that too. So it's an exciting community, and I am a member of that as of this year. Even though I've been with Lapidus Scotland since last year, I'm a new member of Lapidus Scotland, Lapidus International, the research community.
Wow, I'd never heard of it, but what does Lapidus stand for?
That's a good question. I don't fully know. I know it's not a place. And I can't tell you that today, okay, because I'm not entirely sure where they got that part of the name. I'm not sure.
Okay, interesting. And I mean, is your background in mental health as well? I mean, did you study it?
Well, I was an English literature major in college. And then when I went back to finish the last bit I had for English literature, I also picked up psychology once again for the 400th time to try and get through it as a major. And I got almost there and became ill. The Sans 2 classes, even though I crossed the stage, I was very ill at the time.
Oh,
The
sorry.
intention was to become a clinical psychologist. So
Okay.
that particular year, I was diagnosed with a seizure disorder and a brain injury.
Oh, wow.
And my ability to read and do certain things were severely impaired. So, in the last 6 years, I've been spending a lot of time taking good care of myself. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to go back again. But that is where I happen to take classes, clinical classes, to learn research study methods, clinical methodology, and things like that.
Okay. Okay. Well,
I'm sorry about the um, ambulance. It's
oh well, you see, I cannot hear it in that way. I heard it, but it was almost like a cat or like somebody sort of. It was very faint, very faint. Was it
good,
really in
good.
your ears?
It's blaring in my ears.
Okay.
You know,
Well, I'm sorry about that. Are you fully recovered now after all these years?
no, I am significantly recovered, but not fully at all. So I sometimes need to use my assistive devices for different things, or my computer to help me read. I'm able to read. By the time I met all of these wonderful, lovely people during the pandemic, I had just the year before in 2019 started to be able to get through magazine articles,
Okay.
um, and full paragraphs, without having to change my screen a lot, and have the computer read to me. What I cannot do at this time is sit and read a full novel.
Okay.
I could at one point go through 300 pages a night of a novel, and about 100 or so, or close to it, of text, reference text, to study. But I am not there yet. So my computer will read to me, and I will memorize everything that I hear. And it just has to do with how my eyes are tracking. Sometimes my eyes don't track at the same time. And so, therefore, if they're out of sequence or one following the other, it makes it very difficult to see all of the words as well. But we live in a time that we get a lot of help. So it's almost imperceptible, some things.
But it's still amazing that you can do so much writing. Does it affect your writing as well, or not really?
It just means that I end up relying on other senses more.
Okay.
So my memory, my sense memory, my regular memory and my sense memory are quite high. They already were very high before, but now I rely on them much more.
How would you describe sense memory?
Sort of like your intuition,
Okay.
is extremely high, and how I sense, not emotions, but literally feel the spirit of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite tactile, but I'm not sure.
It's
Say
inside
that correctly.
yourself,
Yes, and
not
I
so
just
much an outside picture, but an inside picture.
yes, and I just absorb it all in, much very rapidly.
And if you write poetry, do you have visuals of what you're writing about? Are you because people are very different. I've only recently discovered that some people do have visuals, others have sound or pictures, or smells or words, or I don't know. So how does your
It's very cinematic. Sometimes I have clips of visuals that fly through. Often it is auditory.
okay.
Sometimes it is music,
Okay.
and it's translated into words. I would never know how to explain that because I don't know how that happens. It just does.
It does.
And
You get music inside you, and then that leads to words on paper or on the screen. Wow.
and translating the emotion, kind of very similar to when you hear some kind of classical music or instrumental music, and there's no words, but you know what they're saying, and you can feel the exact emotion. And it's similar to that, except I receive the words at the same time.
Wow. Can you point me to any of your poems that have been conceived in that way?
All of them.
All of them.
It's like a voice. I can hear it. It's not like schizophrenia or something where that's very specific. But this is, all of them are that way. If I'm very quiet, I can hear it.
Okay. So do you open yourself up to poetry, or do you sort of feel cold by poems?
Oh, when I read, what do you mean? Like when I read, when I conceive poetry, or when I read others' poetry, or?
No, I mean for yourself. I mean, sometimes like a poem can come to people, like sort of, a bit of a voice or words or whatever in the air, but what you just said suggested to me, but I'm not sure if that's true, that you could also decide, okay, now I'm opening myself up to receiving something. So it's like
it is both. So it is given, sort of. You still have to work on it after the fact, because I'm only human. I don't always I'm not fast enough sometimes to get how fast that stream comes through, with all of the nuance, but I try as hard as I can to transcribe it. But other times, like let's say I'm in a workshop and we have writing prompts, similar to when you meditate and you get past that part where they say you're trying to shut down your monkey mind that's doing a lot of talking and make it very quiet. It's that part right after, after so much practice, you get there faster, easier. And then that's the part where you just receive, and so if something's coming, it's coming then, and I just practice being very mindful and receptive. I can't make it happen, but I can practice being receptive.
okay. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And can you tell me something about Mama Mentas?
Yeah.
Lovely
What would you like
picture as well. Well, I mean, the picture it's on your website, and it's like a mirrored picture. It is you, I think, but but it also is kind of a mythical being in a way.
Yeah.
And I think the whole poem has something mythical in a way. I don't. Sometimes some things may be a bit literal, but others are sort of more like, I don't know, Mother Earth, or more.
The mother energy.
Yeah.
Nurturing energy, which is really genderless and more about what's inside, because fathers nurture too, but if we took the moniker away and you have the action, it's the same nurturance. Yes. So it's the mother energy. That poem was conceived over, I guess, 30 years ago now, or almost.
Oh.
1990.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
and then and I performed it a lot in the in the 90s as spoken word.
okay.
And then I put it away at the end of the 90s, and then somewhere in the pandemic I took it back out again because it just felt like the right time for it to be part of the world, and it felt urgent. I don't know why, it just did. And then I worked on a few bits and pieces to make sure that it had the cadence of a prayerful that it needed. And Mama Menzies was conceived after my great aunt, my great aunt Aldous, died.
Mm-hmm.
She's Caymanian and she was from West Bay, Grand Cayman.
She's what? Sorry.
Caymanian. She was from Grand Cayman, West Bay.
Oh, okay. The Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And at the same time, that was 1990. And then a few years later, my grandmother was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And at the same time, my great aunt was declining from, Alzheimer's, etc. And the reason why this was significant is because these were the women that helped raise me.
Okay.
And my great aunt lived with me and us, our family, since I was in middle school. So when she passed away, I was in college. And she was just a very significant part of my life. She came into my life when in infancy, and to help my parents take care of me for a while, and then came back when I was in middle school. So it was a huge transition for me, and I felt like the matriarchs were going, they were leaving, and it was the best way that I could express how important they were, how important matriarchs were, how important nurturing and being loved was, how healing that is. And then over time, the poem itself was bigger than the original conception and intent of how it was, poured into me. It's not really mine anymore.
Okay.
Not about me anymore.
And what you learned from the matriarchs, what could you say something about that?
Those women were from a time of the greatest generation, that generation of people. And that was a time where there were some women who were doing big professional things, but there were so many women where society kept them in a bit of a box, but that didn't make them any less great. Their greatness transcended that based on how they raised us, the impact that they had. And so for me, that's meaningful to me, that no matter, there's nothing that can squelch that greatness in a human being. There is no title that can really encapsulate the greatness in a person and their level of impact for nurturing another human and helping to mold another human. So, I hope that anyone who has that kind of energy inside of them, male or female, who contributes to nurturing and caring for other humans, it's my intention that they be honored and it be recognized that is one of the greatest honors on the planet, to take care of the well-being of humans and to pour into them. And then each one does it again and again and again, and we help each other move forward with that energy. So, and then we heal ourselves. There's lines in there about ourselves to remember that it is not always external. We carry that in ourselves. We can do that for ourselves. We can magnify that and also take care of ourselves, heal ourselves, turn that loving care inward. We don't have to wait for that. So that's.
Does it require, what many people I think don't find easy is to have self-love for the self-love, to find themselves worthy of being cared for? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. So I write poems sometimes about that, like Irrigate Well. And when we have our day, I will be doing those. Irrigate well and in the froth. In the froth is about depression, and it is about taking care of oneself. It's about depression, coming through depression, seeing yourself, not tending to oneself, and then eventually having those fleeting moments where you realize you can. Yes, you can. And it's okay. And we are enough to do that for ourselves. We can. We have enough inside to make that happen. And Irrigate Well is a shorter poem, and it's a poem for the page, and it's also about self-talk, what we say to ourselves, how our words create that nurturance for us, how those words light something inside of us and encourage us, and how they're not just words. You know, it's medicine, really. um, we take care of our minds and our souls that way, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we encourage ourselves. It helps build us up and gives us lots of energy to heal the places that we can't touch. So, and to keep going as we receive those answers.
And have you yourself been through a similar process of thinking less, valuing yourself less than now?
That's a good question. Thanks for asking that. I've been through a lot in my life, like many people, and certainly some trauma that I needed to heal from, and to ask questions about how did I get here, or if I'm not necessarily responsible for how I got here, how can I protect myself better? You ask yourself questions. Is there something wrong with me that this happened? Or you just feel so sad and you're in a sad place, or you're anxious. So I did need to learn the skills to move through that. And, you know, some skills I learned long before I even actually had therapy, but therapy did help to underscore things that we did not have the terms for or the words for, that we may have, but we don't know it is a tool in our toolbox. That's a valid tool that we can use to take care of ourselves. So it all works together. Things like DBT, CBT, that kind of stuff. It's really great to know all of these terms, you know, but at the same time, at the end of the day, what's even more important is just to know how to take care of ourselves. And it won't matter if we know all the fancy terms for stuff, but what we will know is how to take care of ourselves very well. The coping tools matter. So,
yes.
I impart what I know, I impart what I live, I impart what I observe, I impart what I've studied, what I've read. The whole thing comes together as an amalgam, and I share it.
Yeah, and obviously there is a lot of inequality in the world. You know, people not being treated as they should be. Is there anything we can say about that? Without, you know.
I wish we had the answers to these things, but someone asked me a question at one point, I think a month or two ago, and said, I wrote a lot about love. And to answer the question you just asked me, I think a lot of it is the evidence of a lack of love, a lack of feeling loved, a lack of the capacity to love, the lack of understanding what love looks like. And then, of course, on the other side of that are the inverses. And then there are the gaps in between, because there's nothing that's really linear or full binary. You know, there are all kinds of outliers that sit in the gap. But I think we do better as humans when we know how to take care of ourselves and our needs, and know what our needs really are. A lot of people do things because they don't know how to meet their needs. They don't even know yet how to identify what those things are. I need to be respected. I need quiet. I need a hug. I need to be valued. But even to get to those kinds of statements, what is it about me? How do I envision being valued? What does that look like? How does that feel? what would love be for me? Because love for somebody else is something else. Respect for someone else is something else. The words sound different. The rhythm is different, you know. So it's a lot of those kinds of things. And once people start to learn how to operate in their bodies, minds, and souls, and with better mastery, then they're able to be better to others and respect other people's boundaries.
So you think that
Um,
all of the say the hurt that people inflict on each other is basically to do with how they relate to themselves?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
I
said,
think it has a lot to do with it. It may not be the end all, the one answer, but I think it has an awful lot to do with it. Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult to repair that. But you said something about spoken word in the 1990s
Mm-hmm.
in Baltimore. Can you say a little about that, about the kind of places that there would be spoken word and that you would be reading?
Yeah, you know, I fell into it by accident. I was very shy, very quiet, a skinny gal, tall, and was taking a college class, and my folder full of my poems fell on the floor, and a woman went to help me pick it up because she helped her elbow knocked it down by accident. She was just being neighborly, but she picked it up, saw my poems, read a few, and took off running to the professor's uh,
Wow.
office so that he could see them. And I was running behind her because I was very private about my things and I wanted them back. And so, long story short, uh, he was one of those popular professors where there are lots of students that crowd his office. So, he decided after she beat me there, by the way, but she's a pretty fast runner. And he read my poems. And then after that, he became my mentor. And to get me out of being shy, because standing up in front of anyone to speak or to uh, have a spotlight on me was the worst thing you could do. I just didn't want to
Wow.
do it. I was better behind the scenes of doing things. I did not like to be in front of people. And so that is how that started. He started to put me into college kind of performances where community members and special guests would come, like Ruby Dee and Sonia Sanchez, and who was a writer. Ruby Dee, the actress, she's long since passed away. She's an American
Didn't,
actress.
didn't Sonia Sanchez just win a prize
Yeah,
at the, is that her?
Sonia Sanchez,
Yeah,
yes.
she just
Mm-hmm.
won an award, I think, at a
Mm-hmm.
very advanced age. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great. And then they
And
would come and look and hear you
and we would
speak.
be yeah, he would have us so that we'd be under the eye of all of these people and participating in these
Wow, that must
events.
be,
And
it must have been scary or
it
not.
it was but what the saving grace was that when you're on stage, the lights are so bright you can't see anybody.
Okay.
So all you really see is the mic. And he just wanted me to get very comfortable in front of other humans, um, sharing my work.
And that worked.
It did. It was one of many things that worked. He was one of several mentors I actually had at the time, because I was in television at the same time, but I was behind the scenes.
Okay.
I was a college student, but I started as an intern at a local TV affiliate, and then doing some work on 2 TV shows there, writing and production, and then associate producer stuff. And that mentor had me behind the scenes. But again, because I was so shy, I did not ever want to be on anybody's camera. So, but what he also did to break me out was send me on interviews to be the voice, but not the face, and get me to talk to people. And so all these people working together over the course of my young years, and there are more, it took a while to get me out of this shell. It took a good long decade or so, but it worked.
And here you are. You're a performance poet. You're in front of the cameras as well. Has it totally gone, the shyness?
Not really. I'm always very nervous for something like this. It's very hard to do.
To be exposed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're doing very well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, all the more kudos to you that you do it. You know what I mean? It's easy to do if one's lost the fear, but if it's still there, it's really courageous to do it.
Put yourself out there. Yeah, it is. Someone gave me great advice that I always repeat in my head that helps me. They say focus on the work.
Okay.
It's about the work. And if you focus on the work, everything else fades away.
Okay.
And it's not about you anymore. And so that way it's not about, am I afraid or unafraid, even though I'm really afraid. If you're just so consumed with focusing on the work and delivering the work, then it's filling up so much of your head. You don't have time to get distracted by all the other stuff. You like hyper focus in, and it really does help a lot that you're being a good servant to the work itself and sharing it properly and delivering it properly. And that's been very helpful.
Okay. Well, I do feel that you have a very lovely presence on the screen, on the small screens that we can offer, you know. So I'm really looking forward to your session on the 3rd of November. I just had to check and see, is it the 3rd? Yes, it's the Wednesday, the 3rd of November. And yeah, we'll talk some more then, and we'll listen to your lovely poetry. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
See you later.